Judge Bruce Schroeder in the Rittenhouse trial. Let's talk about it. So let's talk about my Rittenhouse notes. This is filmed November 12th, 2021. There's two main things I want to discuss, but mainly what we're going to focus on is the actions of one Judge Bruce Schroeder. Of the two main things I want to discuss, there's two things that have happened which are totally new to me that I've never seen in other cases. Number one is the clapping for the veterans. Now, I'm all for supporting the veterans. I'm for clapping for the veterans. I'm for the judge showing honor to the court, the history, the tradition, the system. All that I'm good with. That's all fine. But the way in the case that he pointed out a particular person, there's one person in the room who was a veteran. They cheered for Dr. Black, and then they turned to the defense and said, "Who's your next witness?" And they said, Dr. Black. And so basically he had the whole room, including members of the jury, cheer for a witness who was just about to testify. So what I'm going to do is attempt to put a link either on the screen or down in the comments below. And then you will have the link and you can see about a 30-second clip of what I saw, which totally blew my mind. I've never heard of anything like that. I've never seen anything like that. In Hawaii here, we often talk about in courtroom the sacrifice people make to be members of the jury, and some popular jurists have used the opportunity to compare that to the sacrifice made by the men and women who are still, their bodies still lay in rest in the USS Arizona from World War II. All that being said, I've never heard anyone cheer for a veteran and then call that person to be a witness in the case as we speak. Number two, what I talk about, and this is a photo from, or a screenshot from a video from PBS News, is a photo that happened outside the presence of the jury. But I want you to see the man in the gray jacket is Kyle Rittenhouse. And the person sitting down below with the looking at the screen, not the man holding the microphone, who is the prosecutor who is arguing today's jury instructions, is the judge. Now, when ask anybody you know, any criminal defense attorney, I've talked to about 10 today once this appeared to me. I've never seen a judge get that close to a defendant, turn his back on the defendant, or allow the defendant to stand particularly behind him, and especially not without any number of courtroom security within half a foot away. In this picture, Rittenhouse appears to be almost leaning on the back of the chair of the judge. It's just so foreign to me that it just doesn't appear on my radar. I have never seen anything that compares to that kind of. I can't imagine the judge or court security would allow something like that to happen. Now, let me run down some of the other issues so you don't think I'm only picking on this judge, because I do think it's very important that I discuss many of the things which this judge has done over the course of the case. His ruling early on about victims, that's a standard ruling here in my jurisdiction. It would ordinarily be about that. His ruling about if you can call them rioters and looters, his ruling was actually only after evidence shows that. So the simple fact is, I don't think that's a wrong ruling. I do think I saw the tweet where it was reported. That tweet where it was reported cut it short based on the character count and to sort of build everyone's ire up. So I do think the reporting was wrong. Now, the parable of Paul, I didn't understand it. And I have no idea why that was part of a trial. That was completely out of space. Like, it's not something that a judge can't do, but it sure seems like something a judge wouldn't want to do. It just complicates things with a story that really doesn't apply and doesn't make much sense in this situation. Now, I don't care about the cookie catalog, and quite frankly, the ringtone doesn't mean a lot to me. None of that tells me you're a bad judge, and I fall on the side of, I don't even think that's an appearance of impropriety. The idea that the Lee Greenwood song is specifically a Trump campaign song, even if that's true, I would suggest it actually dates back to the Iraq War, when that sort of subsumed into the American consciousness as far as being a American iconic song, especially for Republicans. But at the time, that's what it was. I don't associate that directly with Trump personally, but either way, you're allowed to have a ringtone, and judges are people. People are vote. If there's anything we learn from this trial, I want to be very clear about this. If there's anything we've learned from this trial, that we need to learn that judges are people too. It doesn't make you a bad judge. He may make bad decisions. He may make bad decisions in his personal life. Doesn't mean he's going to make bad decisions in the court. Doesn't mean he's not going to. But judges are human beings who have their own inputs, lives, and information outside of the court. And I think it's important we start to not only realize that, but we start to use that when we think about, one, how we're going to talk to judges, but two, how we treat what they say and how we get them to believe what we're going to say. When he got mad at the prosecutor twice in a row, the first for the intentional move to question the defendant about his constitutional right to remain silent, I agree. Completely wrong. I actually think the judge was right. Excuse me. The prosecutor's completely wrong. You're not allowed to say, you didn't say anything to police, did you? And in fact, you haven't said anything for all this time. It is a constitutional right to do that. So when you question him about that, implicating that that's something wrong or it's something a guilty person would do, it's entirely out of line. And then there was a violation of a previous order the judge ruled about what sort of evidence can't come in or can't come in. That's the type of thing that judges get very, very mad over. And you got to remember, if you're going to get the judge mad by trying to break those rules or by misunderstanding those rules, what's going to end up happening is he's going to get mad at you. And I think what we saw is with the whole pinch-and-enlarge issue, I don't understand this iPhone, the algorithms, we'll see the pinch-and-enlarge. That would have potentially come out different if the prosecutor hadn't already alienated the judge with the previous two rulings, the previous two violations he tried to do. Once the prosecutor stopped trying to be cute with his questions, he actually got much better at his questioning right up until this point. And when I ran this by another attorney who I talk to frequently, whose opinion I take very highly, what he pointed out to me was the pinch-and-enlarge would never be an issue if you just do what attorneys have done for the last 100 years. Is you go print out the photo. You can print out the photo 16 by 16 if you want. You can make it as big as you want. You don't need to rely upon technology. We've always used photos, and we've always printed them out. And I think what we've learned here is preparation. I wonder if we should do a different video on preparation. You know what? Let me talk about it here. If I had to point out why I think this prosecutor's argument is not as clear as I wish it was, I would suggest I think he prepared in a vacuum. I believe, and I have no proof on this, it's just a gut feeling. It's me talking into my office after the sun goes down. I think he only prepared by practicing his arguments with people who agree with him. And I would be very interested to see if he really did run this by anybody who voted for Trump. If he ran it by anybody who thought January 6th was the right thing to do. If he ran it by people who thought, you know what, why aren't we prosecuting more people out in the riots, for example? So, or the protests, for example. So that's my prediction. And then finally, with the jury instructions today, I thought the judge made it entirely too hard to get to provocation jury instruction. I believe, and I'm recording this before closing arguments are given, I believe this case is about provocation. Either Mr. Rittenhouse provoked the confrontation, in which case he does not get to invoke self-defense, or he didn't invoke he didn't provoke, the confrontation. And that's where we are here. And I think the prosecutor needed to run that provoke thread through the entire argument of the case. And I think he failed to do that, honestly. But I haven't watched the whole thing. I've just watched the parts that are interesting to me. So thank you guys very much. Feel free to follow the YouTube video or follow the channel if this is something you want to see more of.